Hello and welcome back to the Health and Safety Digest, a special podcast by Astutis. This is now episode 3 of season 1, and how rude of me. My name is Toby Howell, the digital content writer at Astutis, and thank you once again for tuning in. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of the show today, I want to say a big thank you to all of you listeners who have supported the show through likes, comments, questions, and just some feedback. Essentially, it's been very nice, for lack of a better word, to hear that and to read that, and it really does give us that feeling that what we're doing here on the Health and Safety Digest is helping and supporting potential learners make really quite important, life-changing decisions. And that was the whole point of the show. So a big, warm thank you from me and the Astutis team. I will not be taking any more of your time before we jump into the conversation with Bren. It is a bit of a bumper episode, and there were even some people outside the room this week talking. That happens in the podcast game. But this week, in this episode, we cover the International Diploma and its syllabus and how it devolves or changes from the National Diploma. A very important question in my opinion. The duration of the NEBOSH Diploma itself and how it varies from a different mode of learning. And then where it is recognised, how the different awarding bodies around the world help that CV of yours sparkle even stronger with the NEBOSH Diploma. So until the end of the show, please do enjoy. Let's get straight down and ask Bren the important questions. Where is the national or international, the whole NEBOSH Diploma, where is it recognised?
Okay, again, interesting question. Maybe not a textbook answer. Obviously, NEBOSH, as we said, is a UK examination board. Probably the longest standing and best recognised examination board in the UK. So very popular in the UK. Very popular in global organisations that are influenced by or run by UK management. So lots of petrochemical, oil and gas companies will recognise NEBOSH qualifications, and they'll fit well in that sort of environment. Certainly, in my experience and my career, we've taught courses in the Middle East. I've taught courses in the Middle East for 20 years or so, and NEBOSH certificate and diploma level qualifications tend to be very well recognised around and about the Gulf states. India is quite a big market for NEBOSH qualifications as well. So there is an international organisation called INSPO, which is the International Network of Safety and Health Professional Organisations. IOSH as the professional body and NEBOSH as the examination board in the UK are both members of INSPO. And one of the things that INSPO has done and continues to work on is mapping qualifications and professional standards across all of the member organisations, including the American Society of Safety Professionals, the Canadian, Australian, Korean, several European professional bodies, to try to allow an equivalence arrangement where people who are qualified in one of those countries under their systems will still be able to fit into the equivalent systems in another country that was a member organisation. So to varying degrees, NEBOSH qualifications will be recognised around the world: the USA, Canada, Australia, several European countries as well.
Seeing as we're talking about international organisations, so I think it's only apt that we just briefly touch on the International Diploma. What would you say the main differences are from the old syllabus to this current syllabus?
Again, the international and national diploma syllabi are very similar. the rest of the world is a very, very diverse place. So the idea of an international course that can be all things to all people in the USA, in Canada, in Australia, in Japan, and so on, is an interesting one. Whereas the national diploma in the UK is obviously very UK centric. We're teaching people in the UK about UK law, UK guidance and standards from the Health and Safety Executive and so on, which obviously won't have the same resonance and degree of relevance outside of the USA. So when NEBOSH developed the international diploma syllabus, what they tend to do is take the UK syllabus and de-UK it, I guess, try to remove some of the UK specific content around legislation and enforcement and so on, recognising where actually the UK is a world leader, and our guidance and our standards would still be recognised as best practice or amongst best practices globally, and we still teach those standards in the international course, and it gives an opportunity as well to bring in some of the more universal considerations from the International Labour Organization and the World Health Organization and so on. But in essence, the same path has been followed. So this new iteration of the international diploma, again for occupational health and safety management professionals, will have a slightly reduced content and expected learning hours from the previous iteration. It'll have some new content, so the Safety 2, Safety Differently, high reliability organisations, supply chains and focal organisations, all of that content is relevant globally, so that's all on the international diploma as well. And the assessment methodologies are the same for the international course as they are for the national, so that shift from a traditional classroom exam to an open book assessment on the application of knowledge, essentially, like I said, a mirroring of what's gone on with the UK national diploma.
So just so I could play devil's advocate here for any potential international listeners who could be looking at and thinking, okay, what are the differences? It's essentially applying what is in the national diploma and making it a universal qualification and making it applicable to wherever they be, and making it essential, kind of applying the same stratagems and philosophies that are in essentially the national.
Yeah, I mean, essentially same theories, same models, because every nation state has its own legal frameworks and enforcement arrangements and so on. That's largely stripped out, and there's more of an executive overview of the principles of law, because we couldn't teach a learner in the Emirates detailed law for Dubai or Abu Dhabi on the same course as we'd have a learner from Nigeria or Kenya wanting to cover their stuff. So there's no local specific legislation or enforcement covered, but headline level principles of good practice. Like I said, a lot of the broader stuff in terms of individual and organizational psychology, engineering good practice, management good practice, that's universal anyway, so that's covered in very much the same way as we would cover it on the NEBOSH National Diploma.
So the next question I was just going to ask you, Bren, was about the length of time it would need to take a NEBOSH diploma, because obviously we were talking there about the challenge and how it is a proper qualification. One of the big questions that we get from our potential learners is how long it takes in all to undertake the diploma. Could you give us a few more details on that?
Yeah, I don't have the number of hours of study to hand, but I know it's it's been reduced from around and about 500 hours down to the high 300s, I think about 380, 390 hours.
Something of that ilk, yes.
Yeah, should have jotted the number down. But in general terms, the 20 years that I've been involved in teaching diploma, typically most learners would like to get the qualification done in a year. And with the old assessment methodologies and the old exam cycles, that was doable, but it would require a fairly significant commitment of time, minimum of 10 hours a week, effort just to get through the basic recommended study time from NEBOSH. And for a lot of learners, there would be additional hours required on top of that, because obviously not everybody processes information at the same rate, and not everybody's got the same starting level of background knowledge. So when NEBOSH say there's 400 or 500 recommended learning hours in a qualification, for some learners that might necessitate significantly more work, just because they're starting from a different place. As we transition now into the new syllabus specification, the new assessment methodology and the new assessment cycle, we'll be looking to again facilitate the completion of the course in around and about a 12-month sort of period for those that feel that they can commit that level of effort, that 10 hours plus a week, to actually get through the content and keep pace with the course, and to be dropped off at assessment dates in good shape for the particular assessments. As far as NEBOSH is concerned, you've got a window of opportunity of 5 years to complete your studies, and it's a rolling 5-year cycle. So if you start studying with us now in the summer and you sit your new Unit 1 exam in September, and a couple of months later you learn that you've been successful and you've passed that, then that is in the bank. Nobody can take that away from you. As long as you pass Unit 2 and Unit 3 before 5 years have passed, then you accumulate the 3 units and you complete the qualification. If work changes, family commitments, life gets in the way of your studies, and you have to park it up for a little while and come back to it, after 5 years, that past unit will no longer count, and you'd have to accumulate your 3 units again together in a 5-year cycle to successfully complete the course. We are typically giving learners, online learners, 3 years access to the materials so they can pace themselves over up to 3 years, and of course that access can be extended as well. But I would say many learners, once they start on this path, have the ambition of wanting to complete the qualification within a year. It's certainly doable within a year, but back to that earlier point about motivation and application, it does require sacrifice and the parking up of some social activities or wherever to make space for a regular 10 hours a week of study if you have that ambition of getting it done in a year. It's important, I think, for any learner getting into the world of study at this level, at honours degree level, to think about realistically what their lifestyle and work and family and other commitments mean in terms of their ability to find study time on a regular basis. For many learners, it may well be more sensible to pace themselves and try to do this over 18 or even 24 months rather than really put themselves in a position where they're taking a lot of strain to get the job done in a year. which could well then impact on their success. So I think it's down to the individual learner to reflect on their personal circumstances, think about what they need, and then to come up with their own plan in terms of studying over 12, 18, 24 months or longer, to suit dropping off at the assessments when they wish, and accumulating the units to get the overall qualification to suit them and their circumstances, pretty much.
Brenig, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you once again for that fantastic insight. And that is the end of the show. We will be talking again next week for more answers, dissecting the NEBOSH diploma for occupational health and safety management professionals. I'm getting good at saying that now. I'm having quite a lot of practice. But if you want your questions answered, please do contact me. Email me, toby.howell@astutis.com, and you can ask us on our social media platforms. You can find us, Astutis, on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and there you will find us, and you will get answers to your questions on these podcasts. And I can safely say that Season 2 of the Health and Safety Digest has been confirmed, and we'll be talking more in depth about the general certificate. So until then, until next week, thank you very, very much for listening, and we will speak to you soon. Stay safe.